Hello and welcome. A global race is underway to deliver vaccines to help end the coronavirus pandemic that has killed 1.59 million people worldwide. Where does India stand in this? What do we need to know to keep ourselves and our loved ones safe until we get the vaccine and even after? Well, to answer all of your questions about the coronavirus today, we have joining us on the show Dr. Naresh Trehan, Chairman and Managing Director of Medanta, the Medicity. We have Dr. Sudhir Gupta, Professor of Medicine, Pathology and Laboratory Medicine and Microbiology and Molecular Genetics, the Director of Programs in Immunodeficiency and Aging at the University of California at Irvine in California. And we have Dr. Padma Srivastav, the Chief of the Neuroscience Center at the All India Institute of Medical Sciences, also someone who volunteered for the phase 3 human vaccine trial of the indigenously developed anti-coronavirus vaccine candidate Covaxin. But the big story, of course, today, the Pfizer vaccine cleared in the US, a landmark in the COVID-19 fight. So, Dr. Trehan, to you, if I could start with a question to you first, what is the significance of this development, would you say? Because does this complete this, an unprecedented scientific sprint that could eventually help bring an end to a pandemic that has killed nearly 1.5 million people?
So, there are two things to be kept in mind here. One is the fact that these are very significant milestones in our fight against COVID. And the speed with which these vaccines have come on the scene in less than a year is a remarkable scientific accomplishment. On the other hand, you're talking about that the approvals that is going on, and they've gone through two hoops, the UK and now the USA, where emergency use of this vaccine has been approved. So now is the time where large number of people will get it, and that will be the proof of the efficacy and also the long-term effect of it. See, there are three parts to it. One is the safety. Safety is pretty much established because in large number of studies, 40,000, another 30,000 by another company, that there haven't been any serious consequences of the vaccine. The second thing is the efficacy is that it is showing that people are developing the antibodies, and we don't know, and on the side of it, that the T cells are also actually very active in providing immunities, but those are very difficult to measure. So that is also showing that after 2 doses, that this is quite effective in developing antibodies. The other thing that the study has showed is that there is 94% improvement in your protection from getting COVID. So when in the randomized studies, that's proven that the efficacy is 94% plus. Now the point is, when large population is vaccinated, we'll then know the real safety of it. And also, as we track these patients who do get the vaccine over a long period of time, we will then know how long the immunity lasts of this vaccine. Because many vaccines have very long immunity. Some of them have, like the flu vaccine, you need one every year. So that's the question mark.
I don't have a phone.
But regardless, it's a great news for humanity.
Great news for humanity. Well, before we get to all of that, the effects of this vaccine, we still have to first distribute it to all. So, Dr. Sudhir Gupta, the Food and Drug Administration's decision to authorize the use of Pfizer and partner BioNTech's vaccines, this now sets in motion a complicated immunization drive in the United States. That's the first big challenge, isn't it?
Yeah, always whenever you have the vaccine and you have to give such a mass population, a lot of logistic part come into it. But the Pfizer has been very much on the top of. So as soon as the vaccine was authorized yesterday, approved, they have already started shipping it all around the country, and you can imagine by Monday we will have the vaccine all over the country given to the people, and of course prioritization that issue, and so is the first line healthcare people the residents, the doctors, the nurses, and also the what is a nursing home here or assisted care where the aging people are, because 40% of the mortality or death of all the cases is in the nursing home and assisted care. So those are the priorities given. Again, as you know, with the Pfizer vaccine, it has to be transported and stored at -80 to -90 degrees centigrade. So they are logistic in that. But again, they have been on the top of these. You can just imagine, I'll be getting the vaccine next week. So I think we are very, very pleased and very excited about it because initially it is about 2.9 million units are shipped in the first shipment. The following week will be another same amount. So we have about 100 million doses here. That means 50 million people will be immunized. And as we can expect next year, by next Friday, Moderna vaccine will be approved and another 20 million units will be from that. And what you can expect is somewhere by May or so, all over the globe, there will be about 2 billion units between at least these two. And then, of course, AstraZeneca and Oxford is coming.
Correct.
In India, they are partnering. So if we can have about 70% of the population immunized, we'll have the herd immunity, and that will be, in a real sense, a control of this pandemic.
All right, so that's where the finish line lies, at 70% or so, and we should see, we think, what will then be the historic, those images of whoever that first American is as they are administered this vaccine, we're told, in the next 24 hours. But what does all of this mean for India? So Dr. Padma Srivastav, US drug maker Pfizer, German partner BioNTech, they're the coronavirus vaccine trailblazers, right? On November 18th, they became the first in the world to release full late-stage trial data. Britain was the first to approve the shot for emergency use on the 3rd, Canada on the 9th, and now you have the US FDA just yesterday on December 11th. So the question is really, will India be next? And I think that's what everybody's asking. Does the US approval to Pfizer possibly speed up approval here next?
Right. That's a very well asked question. That in fact, that's a burning question we have. But in the quest for a very quick fix for the solution, and this is threat which is threatening the survival, we need to actually balance out not just the safety factor but also the efficacy and the what is the optimum, what is going to be optimum for our own country. So according to rules, you know very well that even for an emergency nod, you need to have the trials in indigenous population, that's Indian population. Said that though, but because of the quest of a quick fix to this solution, we may be getting a nod soon, especially when this FDA is approved. But then we also need to balance out as to how we are going to roll out the Pfizer vaccine. In India, the challenges, as Dr. Gupta said, it's a challenge in the US, it's been a challenge in the UK, it's going to be a challenge in India as well, in spite of the fact that we have a very well-oiled machinery of a vaccination program. We have the biggest vaccination program in the whole world. But said that, the rollout with this -70, -80 degrees is going to be an issue. There are people there, we've heard about startups getting those things that we probably would be able to, but it's probably, again, Sarah, I think it's not going to be one vaccine. We're going to start with one. We probably need, more than one variety, which can be rolled out. Yes, this should come soon because that's going to be really, really a shot in the arm. A lot of confidence amongst lots of people that we are, looking at the light at the end of the tunnel. That way, it's going to be absolutely an Amazonian step if it happens soon. Yes. For India. Dr.
Trehan, let me ask you also that same question. What does this mean for India? The applications for Pfizer, SII and Bharat Biotech, they're currently being reviewed by the subject expert committee at the Central Drug Standard Control Organization. Pfizer's India arm has sought an emergency use approval for the vaccine from the Central Drug Regulator days ago after they got clearance in Britain and Bahrain. So they're asking for permission to import the vaccine for sale and distribution in India. What do you think this means for that petition?
So, of course, the fact that the countries like UK and USA and Canada have actually put it through the scientific rigor before they gave permission for emergency use. The data that was presented was quite robust. That's why this has happened. So that means that, yes, it is an effective, although it's a new platform, the mRNA vaccines have never been made before.
Yeah.
So it is a new platform, but it's standing up to all the scientific analysis that's being done on it. So if that is so, I'm sure India will do its own evaluation, and it should pass the analysis here also. But the point basically is there are two. One, there is a constraint on how many doses can be produced by these two American companies, which is Moderna and Pfizer. The second is the fact that Pfizer, of course, has got that impediment that it's minus 70 degrees. Although there are enough facilities available, especially in metros, that it could be used. Second, to transport it, the Pfizer has come up with an ingenious method of transport, which makes it safe. That is possible. But how many doses will be available in India? It's also very costly. Moderna, again, it does not need that freezing. It needs about 20 degrees, minus 20 degrees. But again, it's expensive and limited doses. Like we said, 40 million, 50 million will be from Pfizer, 20 million from 40 million, 20 to 40 million from Moderna. The world needs several billion doses.
Yeah.
And don't forget, you need 2 doses for each person. So there will be a mix. There will be a full basket for India. AstraZeneca is the one which is quite far advanced in its phase 3 trials, and the data is being analyzed right now. So we are expecting that will get approval in the next few weeks. So that will be a big thing, because there are two things. One, you have to store it at 2 to 8 degrees, which is like fridge temperature. The second is the point is that it is reasonably costed.
Yeah.
The third part is that large quantities has already been manufactured. So they are talking about, putting out 100 million doses a month. So that, and as we know, India is the biggest manufacturer of the vaccine. So then Bharat Biotech is not far behind. And then Sputnik, the Russian vaccine, is also is going through the phase 3 trials. So all these 3-4 vaccines that are available to us will be used in one way or the other. I think the Pfizer, Moderna will be the least sort of numerical. AstraZeneca will be, I think, the first one to go to market from this table. And then biotech is following closely, and Sputnik will also reach. So if Russia has started, its entire army is being vaccinated, we'll get data from that also. So I think this is the excitement that is around the availability of vaccines is all well merited. We need to, it's something that lifts the sort of spirit to say there may be a relief from this terrible 9 months that we have been through. So hopefully by March, enough people would be now in the system to know that which are the vaccines that are working well, which is the one which is suitable for India, how we transport it. The government has a very elaborate plan. And the private providers are also standing by if the government will need assistance at any time. There is enough manpower and facilities available in the private sector, also providers. So I think we know the sequence. We know the frontline health workers will go first to be vaccinated. Most vulnerable second. The population of elderly with comorbidities, younger with comorbidities. So this sequentially will get better and better. So I think my only doubt, which we really all are grappling with, how long will the immunity last? I don't think there are other two main concerns from any of the vaccines so far.
How long will the immunity last, especially given how the challenges, Dr. Srivastava, you've already touched upon this, the challenge of actually vaccinating 70% of Indians. So how the US rolls out its vaccination program will be closely watched globally. It's a mammoth task. but especially for a country of the length and breadth of India and our population size. In that context, what do you make of this, the centre's new document, which says that only 100 people per session are likely to be vaccinated against COVID-19? This is a document that's out today about, the government's plan, logistics, how to take this forward.
I think what they said is that 100 people per a site which is going to give the vaccination, is something like that, because that's where you have the people who are giving the vaccine. So they said that there would be people who have to be distanced out while waiting for the vaccine, and then they're going to wait for half an hour after getting the shot and taking those kind of issues. I think that's the reason they probably are rolling out. But I don't think it's going to stay like that. I think it's basically being a little hesitant at the very go. And I think after maybe a couple of days, and they would get into, once the confidence builds in. Because, for example, Sarah, when I volunteered for the shot for the Bharat Biotech, even in the phase 3 trials, which is a randomized controlled trial, now these things were put in place. Initially, there were very few called, and then after taking all the data collection, of course, in a trial, you have a longer period that the person spends at the center while this is being done. And once a shot is given, then you're made to wait for half an hour, and then you're looked at, and then you're sent home. So I think they're looking at that. It's not like, a polio drop where, you just open and then put in the drops and the child goes away. I think that's what it is, but I don't think it's going to work out that way. I don't think it'll last that way. We would get quicker the moment you have a little more practical experience on the field.
So momentum will pick up. All right. Dr. Gupta, Sudhir Gupta, you talked about, what you need, a minimum is of 70% to make this efficacious. But what about vaccine hesitancy, a phenomena regarded as one of, the top 10 threats to global health by the WHO. And in the US, you hear a lot more of this. That is, people who are reluctant to have inoculations, and, that so-called anti-vax movement. Is that going to make herd protection by vaccination harder to attain in many countries? Is that a concern in the US?
Okay, let me answer first to your question, and then I'll add a few more comments since I work in the field, I'm doing the research, so let me give you some. As far as your question of the anti-vax, this is for the first time in the history ever that there is an anti-vaccine movement prior to approval of a vaccine. There have been anti-vax, which are approved vaccine, but prior to the approval of the vaccine, this is unprecedented, that for the first time we have this. And this is definitely the government and everybody is working on to dispel some of these anti-vax and strategies, but taking into consideration, even if you look with the flu vaccine and a regular vaccine, you will have about 20% of the population which may still not get this vaccine. But when we talk about 70% of the vaccination, because we are talking of 70% of the population which is now being either vaccinated or got the natural infection, because that's a natural vaccine. So if in India you have 10% of the population which is already exposed, or it may be more, then you can take that if you have 60%. And same we look here also, that if we have about 10% of the population which has been exposed to the virus, whether they were symptomatic or they recovered from the disease, then what you need is another 60% of the immunization. So we are very optimistic that that will happen. There was a comment came with respect
you can't give the vaccine, or you shouldn't be giving, because tests haven't been done to the youth, 16 and under. And in India, for example, 25% of our population is below the age of 16. But I want to ask the last question then to Dr. Trehan.
But that's started already. The trial have already started
on the youth.
From 3 years to So you will have the data, in another 2-3 months for that age group as well.
All right. So, Dr. Trehan, the last question, I think what everybody is which is on everybody's minds is, so what does this mean? Will a vaccine give us back our old lives? Because many are desperately hoping that these new effective coronavirus vaccines will transport us back to pre-COVID days, and we can, go back to not wearing face masks and put a face mask in the bin. What does this really mean?
No, our belief is that this is not going to give us enough proof that you're not going to get infection, because I gave you the factor that we don't know how long this immunity
will last.
It does not mean that you will not get virus in your upper respiratory tract. It tells you that the body has the ability to fight it, so that your symptoms, even if you get it, your symptoms are going to be very mild. So that's the benefit of this vaccine. But you can infect other people also. So that is why we say herd immunity, vaccine mediated or natural mediated by disease itself, must reach a level of 60 to 70% to form a natural shield for the rest of the population, so that the incidence will go down steeply. So today, masking will, we believe that masking will be in for at least for 6 to 8 months or a year after the vaccination. We will still need that protection because we can still spread the virus. Break the chain, vaccination, masking for another 6 months to 12 months, and then I think we may be liberated if the vaccines actually live up to their promise.
All right, so don't put away those masks just yet. Thank you all, Dr. Trehan and Dr. Srivastav, Dr. Gupta, thank you all for your time tonight. Let's go in for a short break. We'll have the news coming up. I'll bring you all the updates on our top story.